akfaa u ah oo u qalma ma shaqaynayso marka waa inaan marka helnaa walaalka wuxuu la imaadaan aan ku biirino marka waxaan leeyahay soo dhawaada waana ku mahadsantihiin qof walba magaciisa iyo maqaamkiisa aan ku salaamaya waxaan kaga baxayaa laba qodobka koowaad Ismaaciil Warsame oo nala jooga oo nooga yimid Portland nooga yimid waan tacsiyeynaa si public ah si khaasatan isku inaan arag waabihiis Allahu naxariisto wuxuu dhintay bishii I think 7 August inay ahayd anigu reer Virginia ahaan jiray dadka Virginia aad ku tagtagaan ah magaaladaas masaajidka Daarul Hijra masaajidkaygu ah meesha wax ku bartay waxbarashadii kood ku bilaabay ahayd marka waxaan rabaa inaan u tacsiyeeyo bismi community-ga inaan ugu tacsiyeeyo aaba Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ha u naxariisto qabriga Allah u waasiciyo martii la jecel yahay Allah ka dhigo adigana insha Allah ehelkana iyo asxaabtana sabir iimaan Allah ka siiyo ugu dambeey Dave, you're great. We really appreciate it. Every event that Somali community has or any community in King County has, we see you there. And that is how you become a change maker in this community. Thank you for recognizing me in this community. Thank you so much. Sometimes I question myself, how can Dave remember always your name? He says Sheikh Yahya. And I'm like, even he mentions Sheikh Yahya. I'm saying, you should just say Yahya. You know what I'm saying? Thank you so much for the title. Thank you everyone. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Yahya. And it's really been a pleasure, just emceeing this event for you all. We're about the end of the line. I want to say, actually wanted to make one announcement. So next Saturday, inshallah, the 20th, we'll hold our 10th annual health fair here at MAIF. So please come, bring all the community. Everything that day will be free. We'll also be launching actually a comic book called COVID, Awo and I in Somali and English. So please invite everyone. I'm going to give it back to Farah.
Okay. Thank you again for your time. We don't have much time left, but I just wanted to recognize many leaders who do a lot of work within the community who are here today. If all of us talk, I think we'll be done maybe tomorrow morning. So we know you, we recognize you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the work you do within the community. So without further ado, I just wanted to introduce Dr. Nuur. Dr. Nuur is a Somali-British author and educator with extensive experience in teaching and learning, curriculum development and management in further and higher education sectors. He holds his Bachelor in Science in Computer Studies and Master's in Science in Systems Analysis and PhD in Education from London South Bank University, the University of London and University of Greenwich respectively. Without further ado, let me welcome Dr. Nuur Hassan to talk with us. Thank you.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Marka hore waan salaamayaa salaam diiran baan ku salaamayaa dhamaantiin waxaan rabaa inaan u mahadnaqo qabanqaabayaashii soo qabanqaabiyay xafladan kuwii marti qaaday idinkoo ka soo qayb galay oo maalintii sabtida saacadiini soo horay oo yimid marka aad baan idinku mahadnaqayaa dhamaantiin magacyada ma wada sheegi karan kulli laakiin qof walba maqaankiisu ku salaaman yahay fadhigiisa. I think I should speak English. Zama. Yeah. So since everything's in English and everyone was speaking English, let me try my British English actually. So I think first of all I want to start with let me set the scene first. Obviously I'm not going to talk about the book. I want you to buy the books and read the book. Some of you have already quickly read, my brother Ahmed, and I hope you enjoy. But let me set the scene. First of all, I know I'm in Seattle and I know I'm in Kent area. This is Kent, right? More or less, yeah, okay. Kent is very close to my heart because obviously I live in Kent in London. Yes, a county called Kent in London. I live there. I want to start with first, Minnesota is obviously without argument is hosts actually one of the largest Somali diaspora in the US. Do you agree with that point? More or less, yeah? And despite Minnesotans' recent arrivals, relative to the diaspora, other diaspora community in the US, I will argue personally that the Somali Minnesotans fare better than other Somalis in the diaspora, arguably in Europe, in the US, and beyond. Do you also agree with that? Maybe, yeah? I think Minnesotans are very successful, no doubt about that. And I'm talking about the first generation. Now, however, and this is big however, the same cannot be said about a significant number of a US-born Somali boys in Minnesota. We cannot say that. So the point is, here we have a immigrant community came to Minnesota without no dollars in their pockets, no education, no language, no cultural awarenesses, and they've done so much. So the point is, and the question I'm posing in the book is, why Somali, US-born Somali, particularly boys, are not doing very well? Why, for example, large number of them are not doing well in the schools? Why do they drop out schools? Why are they not going to universities? Why are they not graduating? We've just heard statistics now. Why large number of them find themselves in the criminal justice system? Why large of them find themselves in gang culture? Why do they shoot each other? Why do they find themselves in the streets? I mean, everyone talked about these things. So the question is, why do many boys struggle when the immigrant parents who came before them without nothing achieved so much? And I know exactly the same thing is true here. I mean, I came here on Thursday and I've been observing. Actually, I'm not going to write a book about Seattle, but I've been observing actually, and I know you guys done quite well too. Now, my book attempts to answer that question. It might not offer everything you want, but it's an attempt for me to answer that question. Why there's a dichotomy. And I'm going to talk about actually the dichotomy between girls and boys, and I'm quite interested in that. In fact, there's a chapter that deals with why girls are so way ahead from the boys, or why there's a dichotomy between the two. Now, in my attempt to find an answer to this question, I have focused on 4 essential experiences. What I call experience 1, experience 2, 3, and 4. So let me quickly go through these 4 experiences. One is I've looked at parenting. And I think my brothers talked about parenting. The way we parent our boys. How do we bring them up? What is our behavior as a parent? I'm a parent too. So looking at how do we parent, exploring parenting behaviors, and how our behavior as a parent, especially fathers, impact our children, particularly our boys. So I'm looking at the impact from parenting point of view. The second one is I'm looking at what I call beyond the family. Family is a very important institution, but I'm looking at beyond the family. So I'm looking at things like schools. So I've looked at schools and their impact on Somali boys, educational and career outcomes. So are schools doing well? What are the schools' quality of education? What is the school's attitude to our boys? And how those things impact on them in terms of career outcomes, going to higher education, graduating, and even life outcomes. I also looked at experience 3, what I call Somali male-female dichotomy, which is where I discussed parents' behavior towards girls. I'm glad some of you actually talked about moms are concentrating on girls and they're just slightly calling boys as boys, they can go and do whatever they want. So because of actually there's some kind of a stigma attached to if the girls do something, then that in effect, supported, become advantageous to girls to do well. So I looked at the dichotomy, and number 4, I look at identities. And remember, we always call about identity crisis. This one is really, I'm going beyond the headlines. I'm actually looking at the nuances. So I'm looking at what I call a multi-hyphenated identity. Remember, we're Somali, we're Muslims, we're Somali, we're black, and then we're Americans. I'm talking about you, not me. I'm British. Okay? So I'm talking about a Muslim, Somali, black, and then American. So there's 4 layers. It's not only identity. So those multiple identity crises, and I'm looking at how this hyphenated identities, how boys negotiate between these two competing, this multiple computing. And there's a metaphor in the book. In fact, there's one boy who told me that he has two jackets to negotiate these competing ideas. One jacket for home and one jacket for American friends. So I want you to read that and have a look at it. So in the interest of allowing readers, you, to sift through the book to reach my answer or conclusion, I will not provide a full answer to these questions. And I want you to find out the questions, and I hope you find the questions. Now, but I wanted to, however, I would like to bring to your attention to the following points, which I want you to concentrate while we're here quickly. And these points are, which I think, which I will argue is contribute to the struggle Somali boys go through growing up. When I say Minnesota, here is exactly the same thing. Behavior. Even UK, we have the same problem. Okay, and I would, if someone asks me why do I choose Minnesota rather than Seattle, probably I will answer that question, and there's a reason for that. So I want you to look at things like overparenting, how Somali moms parent their boys. I call it overparenting. Okay, there's something I call physical and psychological absence, socially distance. I've just heard my brother talking about it's true. He has never heard. We've never heard that. That doesn't mean our fathers hated us. No, not necessarily. But we never had that culture. Abba was sitting there as a lion. I like that, actually. I might pick up that from you. He said fathers were sitting there like lions, untouchable. You cannot reach them. But their father's there. So there's no emotional attachment. There's emotionally distance. And that really become internalized in ourselves, and we now pass into our boys. Now, I also wanted to think about the schools. Schools stereotyping Somali boys as a badly behaved, which I disagree. Yeah, because not all our boys badly behave. Things like cultural and language deficiency, what I called a capital deficiencies, and in fact, it's called a deficit model. Applying that, oh, you speak Somali at home, therefore you must be deficit. I want you to think about that. Also, girls' safety net. There's something called honor code and safety net in the book, which I want you to have a look at it, which actually society offers it, but the girls are using that, but boys, there's no safety net for them. And there's a reason for that. No mentorship. Someone mentioned actually mentorship. There's no mentorship at all. And early training. I want you to think about also the hyphenated identity. So my final thought is this. Most of our Somali boys, wherever they are in the diaspora, whether in the UK, US, Europe, other European countries, really face a myriad of challenges growing up. So, but obviously I'm concentrating on Minnesota now and in the US, ranging from absent and emotionally distant parenting styles. Okay, I mean, there was a friend of mine who asked me, he said, "No, you've touched us as fathers. Well, I'm angry with you," he said. And I said, well, I'm telling the truth. I'm father too. So read the book and have a look at exactly what the deficiencies are in ourselves. Lack of male role models to identify the crisis, what I call a hostile school systems, and racism, of course, everywhere. This shaped the experiences of our boys, hence their struggle. So I want you to read the book, please. There's 5 chapters which deal really the things I've touched. And my conclusion is 6 chapters actually concludes and summarize the book. And I hope you will enjoy reading it. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, so thank you. Then now if you have any questions, you may ask. Before then, I just wanted to announce an event taking place after Maghrib here at Maeve, all about Zakah for Muslims in the US. Sheikh Dr. Main Al-Quda will be here to present that discussion today after Maghrib, inshallah. And okay, go ahead. Dr. Nuur, su'aal baa la qabaa. Okay. Maghrib aan nahayo tan kale hala soo gaabay annaga hadalka badin.
Hey. Good question. Okay, why did I choose Minnesota? I came from London. I work and live in London. So why did I choose Minnesota rather than Seattle or Toronto or Sweden or whatever? Yeah. Good question. The reason why I chose Minnesota simply is Minnesota, in my view, are by far the best performing diaspora in the US. And the dichotomy, the question really is, if the first immigrants are performing so well, and now they join, the American political system. Some of them actually, and majority of them are now buying houses in the suburban area, big businesses. There's a lot of success stories in Minnesota. So the success of the first generation, the immigrant generation, and the staggering failure of the boys is so much. And therefore, that's why I chose to base my research in Minnesota. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so the question is, when we were in Somalia, boys, if you look at the university's higher education sector or landscape, there was more boys than girls. But here, the opposite is true. I think, in my view, although I didn't concentrate on that one, in my view is because this is what we're talking about. Because the way we upbring our boys, the way we parent, absent fathers. I talked about the dichotomy between the girls and the boys. So those things really compound the pressure, and therefore, and also there's one thing that really we ought to talk about. If you look at America, and I'm going to say this, and I want you to challenge me if it's not true. America, by far, in terms of the streets, if you talk about the system in the streets, is hostile to a black male, young black man. It's hostile. There's no doubt about that. So the hostility, just being a black person in the street, you run the risk of your risk is almost 50-60% more riskier than your other counterparts. Yes, I'll go to after you. Yes, yeah. Yes, you will read a lot of story, and also, by the way, the style of the style I use in the book is storytelling. So you see the stories, people telling stories, fathers coming in. There's a lot of fathers who admit this is an issue. There's one father whom I liked personally, who did very, very well, and he offers some advice about how to go about. In fact, let me say this as well. Remember that there's always justifications. When some fathers do not involve themselves emotionally in their children, there's always the reasons, and it's in the book actually. So things like economic freedom, working 2 shifts and coming home late, all sorts of things. There's always reasons. Not because the fathers hate the children, it's because there's always a reason behind it. And I've mentioned that in the book. Yeah? Awale. Yeah. Good question. When I did my PhD 6-7 years ago now, my first book, which was a parental involvement, so the role of the Somali parents, if you Google me, you can see that, was about the role of Somali parents in their children's education, and that was UK based. So I've done that, and this is my second book. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Final question. Just one final question. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. dhulkii maya maya صح وقتها أنا كاسوي أنا سمعت شو دلائر هذا بوكس ما سمعين أما سنتين سانك
مقرب على الجوجا هاد وقت إنه سامح وبوجا وحلقوا بحنا وصدن قيمها وزل بالقوا بحين كرا كاش بالقوا بحين كرا كاش بال بحين كرا ها أوكي كفصي في عمبو no taxes credit معك زل باكو صدري